Hi, I'm Sister Simone Campbell. I'm the Executive Director of Network, Lobby for Catholic Social Justice, and leader of Nuns on the Bus. And I'm so excited to be with you today. We're here, well, virtually here in Iowa, where we're going to spend some time talking about the challenges of voting in Iowa, the experience of just how the organizing's going, and hear from the Auditor General of Iowa about some of the challenges they're facing in keeping track of uh, all of these things that we have to keep mindful of in this COVID time. So there's what we're going to do first is hear individually from our four panelists, and then we'll have a general conversation about how the work of the people on our panel complement each other, the challenges they're facing, and talk a bit specifically about Iowa. So let's get started. How's that? All right. So I'm excited to welcome Matt Sinovic from Progress, Iowa, here to our studio.
Right.
Matt's been a friend and a supporter of Nuns on the Bus since it started way back in 2012. We worked
Right.
together and did a variety of things. And every time the bus has managed to make it to Iowa, which has been quite a few times, uh, Matt's been involved. So, Matt, welcome. I'm really excited to hear about what are you doing this year in such a challenging circumstance with your organization for this
W-
vote.
Well, first of all, just thank you so much for Sister Simone for everything that you do, everything that Network Lobby and the Nuns on the Bus do. I mean, it is as someone who's progressive, as someone who's a practicing Catholic, like I just we're all just kind of constantly inspired by you. So thanks for doing all the great work that you're doing and for continuing to make Iowa a priority. There are some folks that a few years ago perhaps thought that maybe, if, at least from a national perspective, that you wouldn't need to stop in Iowa anymore. But that is certainly not the case. And there are those of us on this call, on this here at this event, this virtual event, and around the state that have never stopped fighting for our shared values, and will continue to do that. So we're just very glad that you all are doing so much in Iowa this week. I know there's a lot going on.
Yeah, we do have
It's
a
a
few
full
events.
schedule,
So,
so
yeah, yeah.
so
Well,
we
that's
appreciate that. Yeah. Um,
well, Iowa's become like really important, and even more so with the Supreme Court nominee. Now, we're
hmm
not going to go too political on
Sure.
this.
Sure.
We're just going to talk about getting out the vote,
hmm
but I might have to stray just slightly on the importance of your senators in this
Sure,
election.
and yeah, definitely. When they're both on the Judiciary Committee, and we can leave it at that if you want. But I will say, and without getting into who anybody is voting for, I mean, there are so many important issues that are up. Every election, but I mean, and we've, like you said, we've talked about this from the beginning. I mean, if we care about taking care of each other, taking care of our neighbors and family members, whether it comes to healthcare or schools or how they can how well they're treated at work. I mean, this is those are the values that are on the line every election, and none more so than this year. And that's kind of that's one of the ways, a couple of ways that we engage with people and encourage them to vote. I mean, we have a large online network that we encourage to take action all year. I mean, all year round. I mean, this is not. I mean, I know you know that, we try and get them to contact everyone from their state legislator to city council members and school board members, all the way up to members of Congress and senators for both parties, trying to just stand up for what we believe.
Uh-oh. Did we lose you? Help. Oh, it seems like we've got some trouble with Matt and his connection. perhaps Caroline, who's doing our background tech, could we swap Matt out? Maybe we could reach out to him and have him rejoin. And Sue, hopefully we've got a better connection. Ah, great. Oh, Sue, you're so flexible. Thank you.
Oh, not a problem. You know, I've worked with Matt for a lot of years and I've never heard him silenced like that. I don't know what's going on. This is a weird thing going on.
Ooh, maybe it's the power. It's the power of the virtual bus. So
I am
Sue,
the director of Iowa Citizen Action Network. We've been around for 41 years. We work on social justice issues, and we believe that everyone has the right to the freedoms and the everything that the government has to offer in America and in our state. We work a lot on federal issues. One that we've been really thrilled with and had a lot of good response to was Tax March Iowa. And Tax March, we were an affiliate of the National Tax March. And so we were able this past little over a year, about a year and a half, to really bring light to the unjust tax system that is happening in our country and how it affects everyday Iowans and Americans. And we got to do some pretty fun things with it too. We actually have a big chicken that we take around, and we went to a lot of events. Of course, starting in March, we did a lot of things virtually. But one of the favorite things we did was a moral town hall about the morality of taxes. And you know, they don't seem like they go hand in hand, but there is a video of that on our Facebook page for Iowa Citizen Action Network if you'd like to check that out sometime. Another thing we're working.
Sue, could I just ask you, what were the kind of the key issues that you were seeing connected between morality and the tax?
A lot of it had to do with how the poor or the less fortunate are left behind, and the rich just get richer and richer. We were so fortunate to have Reverend Abraham Funchess on, who's the director of the Waterloo Commission on Civil Rights. And, you know, he sees a lot of that in his everyday life, in his day job, so to speak. A huge disconnect with the African American and the Latino populations. Yeah, it's just, I could talk for an hour about.
Okay, let's save it. Sorry, I distracted you.
No, that's
what
fine.
else? What else are you up to?
We're also working in a coalition, and that is what ICANN does. We build coalitions and we work in coalition. And one of them that we're working with now is the Lower Drug Prices Now. And when we started it, it was because of the exorbitant costs of prescription medications and how it's impossible for some people to actually get their medication. But with COVID, we've pivoted a little bit because we do not want to see our tax dollars go to putting together a COVID response and a vaccine and then hand it over to these big drug companies to do with what they please. Because we know what happens when they get their hands on something. There's no there's no guarantee that you and I are going to be able to afford.
And here our tax dollars are funding all the research that goes into
exactly.
That.
Yep. Yeah. And you know, we hear they promise they're not going to, but it needs to be absolutely a part of the COVID response. Another thing that's really happened now is, and what we saw with the COVID response as far as the helping everyday Americans, was paid leave. And, you know, America is one of the only countries that does not have a government paid leave program. And with COVID, we saw so many people able to keep paying their rent, buying their groceries, and not having to worry about being able to go to work. I say I have a tale of two corporations in my family. I have one family member that works for a large corporation, and they did everything right. When they had to close the business, they paid the employees, they give them time off. It's awesome. I have another well, it's my daughter who works for a big corporation, and they decided that she was an essential worker and she had to keep the business open by herself with curbside delivery only for 6 weeks and they sent cleaning supplies that were inadequate. And I mean, it is just unbelievable. And what happened was in the COVID relief bill, it was corporations with 500 or fewer that got help. And these big corporations, I think they assumed they'd do the right thing. And I think sometimes our government needs to realize that our government needs to do the right thing when they're writing these laws.
Okay, you and I could have an argument about that large donor issue or large corporate issue, but
right. Well, they don't automatically do the right thing. They need to be told how to do it, apparently. So, and I looked up the CEO of one of the companies, and his annual compensation is $5.8 million. So, yeah. Another thing that we've kind of rebooted right now, for obvious reasons, is our Why Courts Matter. We worked on that for years when Senator Grassley was the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee. And right now, I think we're in the fight for our lives with the Supreme Court. And it is a pretty scary proposition. We are having a rally tomorrow in Cedar Rapids, live and in person, socially distanced and with masks, to just protest this
it's a power
through justice. So that's a little bit of what we do.
That's fantastic, Sue. That's great. Thank you for being so nimble and hopping in.
Yeah.
Why don't we get Britt in now and stand by, and we'll make this a whole conversation. Britt, thank you so much for being part of us. We know that you're with Next Gen Iowa, and you're working with all of the young people. You all have a slew of colleges and universities, a lot of young folk in Iowa. Talk to us about what are you up to and where are you working these days?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're great. Loud and clear.
So I'm Britt. I'm with Next Gen Iowa. It's a part of the organization Next Gen America, which I see the little link is going across the screen at the bottom. We have 11 states across the country. I am lucky enough to be running the Iowa program. And yes, there are quite a lot of colleges and universities in Iowa. But we don't just focus on college students. We focus on voters between 18 and 35.
I didn't know that.
Yes, if we vote, if we register to vote and we actually turn out to vote, we will be the most powerful voting bloc in the country, which a lot of people don't know that. So we have been working really hard for several years. And now this election seems to be meaning more than ever like the most important election of our lifetime. Every single day, it's, we don't have to get too political, but every single day it just matters more and more. And we don't have a lot of time left. So we have been working really hard to register a lot of young voters. This year in particular, we're focusing a lot on absentee voting, which we're lucky enough to be able to have all voters vote absentee this year in Iowa.
Good.
Yes, so we've been trying to encourage people to do that, and really just doing a lot of education on the electoral process in Iowa, since we know that the voting process can be really confusing, especially for people who may have never voted before, which would be mostly young people. We are doing a lot of educational events, especially as we get closer to Election Day. We'll be having one every single week. And just continuing to make sure people get registered ahead of the pre-registration deadline, and get their absentee ballot requested on time. But most importantly, Next Gen, we just want to represent the values that young people care about. So access to good education without crippling debt. Same thing with
what a great idea. Yes.
Yeah. Same thing with healthcare, and then fighting for climate justice. These are all things, that we take to heart, because we know that we're going to inherit the planet and we're going to keep our debt for a long time. So we want to do what we can now to change the process.
And what kind of response are you seeing right now?
So we're seeing a lot of people really engaged. I think especially since Iowa, unfortunately, has so many cases of COVID. People are feeling more politically charged as they are on their campuses, trying to stay healthy, trying to stay safe. People want to, get registered. They want to know about the election. They want to know, how are they going to go vote? They've never voted, and they've definitely never voted absentee. So we're seeing a bigger response than we've ever seen, which is great for us, but also it adds a lot of pressure because we want to make sure that people do get what they need.
Oh, absolutely. And it's such a critical election, as you say, to make sure that all young people's voices are heard. And I'm also glad to hear that it's more than just college. I was aware of the college work, but I'm glad you go up to the late 20s, early 30s. Those folks need a lot of support also. How cool. Thank you so much, Britt. We'll have you back for the conversation piece. And now we want to invite in, I think this is going to work, Rob Sand, who is the auditor of Iowa. And Rob, I'm so glad you're with us because you're the one that oversees all of this, making sure that it works, as I understand, keeping track of it. Is that
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Sister Simone. I'm absolutely delighted to be here with you, and the work that Nuns on the Bus has done. I'm 38, and I feel like pretty much all the elections that I've been around for, you all have been around for, and it's always been visible, and it's always been, I think, a very important voice to add to our democracy. So thanks for doing all that.
Oh, thanks for that. It means I'm getting old. Woo.
Our office is one of two offices, I think, in the state of Iowa that you could say has oversight responsibilities. And the first, so we have 99 county auditors in Iowa, and every one of those county auditors is in charge of the election in their county, more or less. And then you have the Secretary of State that they work most closely with and most directly with for the oversight of elections. But then our office, also at the state auditor's office, we have sort of broad oversight responsibility for all state offices, including the Secretary of State's office. So there is most of the work that is done at the state level in the state of Iowa always involves some level of oversight from our office.
Wow. And how is this different this time with COVID-19 and all these challenges that we're facing?
It is different. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I think one of the biggest differences is simply the level of absentee voting that Iowans are doing. Iowa has always had a relatively an absentee ballot system that provides a relative amount of freedom to Iowans in choosing how to cast their ballot and choosing when to cast their ballot. Generally, ballots go out towards the beginning of October. You can make your ballot requests for an absentee ballot well before then. And then you've got that whole month to find those few minutes that you want to use to get that ballot filled out, and then either return it in the mail or if you want to drop it off at your county auditor's office. So we've just seen an incredible level of absentee ballot requests this year, far beyond anything that we saw in any other election cycle. And that's consistent with the primary. So I think that there are a lot of people who are particularly interested in this election and particularly interested in the people who are on the ballot. But undeniably, a big piece of that increase in absentee voting, we also saw it in the primary in June here in Iowa, where we just had record-setting levels of voter turnout based in large part upon the decision of the Secretary of State, which is being repeated in the general election, to send an absentee ballot request form to every registered voter in the state.
Wow, to make it really easy to get it. Yeah.
Exactly. And so, there's a lot of people who take pride and who take sort of a sense of civic responsibility and enjoyment in voting at the polls on election day. And I think a lot of those folks are sort of thinking about that this year and thinking, maybe this is the year to have an exception to it.
Maybe
And
not.
so when the Secretary of State sent that out in June, a lot of folks said, yeah, seems like a reasonable idea. Let's not go indoors to a polling place. Let me just do it from here in my home. And I think we're going to see the same result here in November. Large voter turnout based on, in part, interest in the candidates, but also on the fact that the state has done more to make it easy for people to vote than we have ever done before.
Wow, that's great. And since you've got, I hadn't realized, or I'd forgotten, I guess, that you had 99 counties in Iowa.
Yes.
I come from California, which is a lot bigger, and we only have 54. So it must be kind of teeny. Is that how it works?
Legend has it that they were drawn back in the days of the horse and buggy. And they are essentially set up so that the distance from one county seat to the next is about as far as you might travel in a day with a horse and buggy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Makes people close to governance, but it kind of makes it more complex, I would bet.
There's a mix of that. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, in the one hand, you've got your county seat that's not too far away. And then on the other hand, we keep talking more and more in Iowa about ways to make sure that county government can be working efficiently and effectively. And so you see more and more counties doing sharing agreements where maybe they have a county attorney that is effectively part-time in both counties, rather than each county having their own full-time county attorney, that sort of thing.
That makes a lot of sense. I know we were in Ohio on Tiffin, Ohio, on doing a rural roundtable, and discovered that one town was in 5 counties because of the way they had been. And that was like, how do you do it? And there's a lot of things where county driven. So.
That's right. It can get complicated. In fact, because it's specifically relevant to what you just mentioned. Here's the new puppy that we picked up just yesterday. And we don't have a name for her yet, but she came from Postville, Iowa, which is a town that is definitely in 2 counties, and I think technically in 3 counties. It's in Winneshiek, Almaquis, and then I think a piece of it is also in Clayton County. So depending on where you are, you could have an address that says you live in Postville for your mailing address, and yet your county government could be one of 3 different counties.
Whoa, how complicated. Well, I'm glad you're keeping an eye on this. Well,
we're trying, but we're encouraged. And I think a lot of people out there are getting the message that this is the election of our lifetimes, and that people are very concerned about it and really trying to make sure that people are getting involved. So we've also seen a lot of volunteerism too, and new folks signing up to be poll workers too, which is good to get a new generation involved with that as well.
Absolutely. Well, let's bring it up with Britt and see if some of her next gen folks are getting involved in that, because I know I'm the demographic where I'm supposed to be careful. So hopefully we've got some folks that are stepping into this. So Caroline in the back room, why don't we bring everybody in and let's have this shared conversation. Yay. And Matt's back. Okay. So before we get into this, because I'm really curious about poll workers and all that with you, Britt, but let's get started with Matt. If you want to unmute yourself, and do you want to tell us a little bit about Progress Iowa that you didn't get a chance to share, and
Sure.
then move to the common conversation?
Of course, and thanks for letting me do that. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties earlier, yeah, I just wanted to specifically mention that we are. We're engaging our network of more than 75,000 around the state to participate, vote, request an absentee ballot, vote safely in person, and make a plan if you're not able to vote early or vote absentee. And then we're also centering around a day that we haven't made any big announcement about this yet, but on October 15th, we're going to do and invite our coalition partners like Iowa Citizen Action Network, Next Gen, and elected officials like Rob to participate in this too. But a return your ballot day, just on October 15th, to try and get people to do that as early as possible, so that there's no question, no confusion, that it gets in early, because you can request an absentee ballot up till October 24th, but if you've requested it already, it will drop in the mail. I believe it's October 5th, but it's early October. So people should get them in plenty of time by October 15th. And so we'll encourage people to take a picture, sending it in, and try and build some momentum around getting those ballots in, mailed back as early as possible this year. I think that's really, really important. So that's something that we're focused on, but we also do a lot of work in coalition with our partners. So everything that NextGen's doing, ICANN is doing, you all are doing, that Rob is doing to promote this. We work with a group called the Voter Participation Center. I mean, we try and lift up everybody's good work on this, because there's no one perfect silver bullet for this. We just think everyone needs to get the information, needs to vote. And so those are a few things that we're doing. But thanks for letting me do that, since my internet crashed earlier. But yeah, looking forward to the discussion as well.
Oh, good. Well, thank you, Matt. Thanks for persevering and hopping back on. Britt, I'm curious, since Rob was mentioning the need for investment and poll workers and this kind of thing, is some of your work including that with young folks, since they're not the target demographic of us old folks? So I'm curious about how that's shaping up for you all.
So I think, so actually to that point, I saw someone's Instagram or Twitter post where they said, since people of an older age who are typically poll workers are most at risk for COVID, it's time for us young people to step up and start being poll workers, which I thought was really great. And if I wasn't so busy trying to get out, I would become a poll worker. I think another challenge that really a lot of young people face is that we work often multiple jobs and we go to school. So that makes it pretty hard for us to actually take off the time to be poll workers. But we're focused on making sure people vote safely. So that's why absentee voting is so important for us. The fewer people that we can keep from going to the polls by actually getting them to just vote early and vote by mail will mean that our poll workers are safer. All voters are safer in general. So we're going to be pushing starting on October 5th when those ballots go out, which we're super excited about. We're going to be telling people, hey, your ballots are coming. We're going to make a plan with you to submit that as soon as you can. And if you haven't requested yet, when are you going to? Because we need to get that done. We also, want to make sure that we get things mailed back on time. And if people are really concerned about their ballot getting back, then we're going to say, okay, put your mask on, get some gloves if you have them, take some hand sanitizer and go drop that off at your auditor's office. But we really want people to be voting early. We don't want to crowd the polls on election day, although we do want everyone to vote. So if that is their only option, we will be telling them, here's how to do it and here's how to do it safely. But the biggest thing we're going to be focusing on is recruiting some volunteers to help us get that message out there.
Fantastic. Well, that's so important. Now, I mentioned briefly that we had done this series of rural roundtables, and we were in Clinton, Iowa last summer, well, a year ago, this past July, and had a really interesting conversation about some of the challenges that Iowa faces between the urban, I understand, the Des Moines or the Cedar Rapids hub. I understood those are urban, and then the smaller towns, and then the really rural west or the other parts of Iowa. And I'm curious how your strategies or your approaches may differ depending upon the urban-rural divide. Do you find that to be a divide, or do the same strategies work for both your urban and rural setting, do you think? And I'm open to anybody who wants to respond.
I think they work about the same, honestly. I've lived in Western Iowa years ago, and it isn't a lot of difference. And I actually live in a rural area in Iowa now. And
Where are
yeah,
you?
I don't,
Where are you?
pardon?
Where are
I
you?
live in rural Story County. And in fact, we were hard hit by the derecho, and our Mr. Rob Sand offered to come and help, but we had already received help from J.D. Schulten. This is what wonderful Iowans do, is come and help out a poor old couple that had a tree in their bedroom and
Oh no.
roof blown off, and yeah. So anyway, I digress.
No.
But I think
Wait. Sue,
yes.
that's not digression. That's like giving context for the work that you're doing. Holy moly,
Right.
that's important to know. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It was marvelous. So I felt very blessed, and it was very interesting. The folks who offered to come and help, and the ones who are supposed to be representing me, that I heard crickets. So
Yeah, that's important. That's important. Thank you. And Matt, are you seeing a difference between your work in organizing between urban, rural, small town approach?
I think the biggest thing is, I mean, the work that we do is when I think I mentioned this, and I don't know where I got cut off earlier, but where we engage people in these discussions year round. And so we kind of know what the people in our network are interested in talking about. So if someone is from like rural Story County, like Sue, but they are interested in the postal service because that's how they get their that's how they get their prescription drugs in the mail, then we know that we can connect them to the importance of voting on that set of issues. And so it's really the way we communicate with the people in our network is more based on what we know that they've taken action on and what they individually or their family cares about. And so that helps us. So I think that, I actually I have not looked at whether that fits the rural, urban, suburban divide, but it's more geared toward, we know that they've taken action and cared about schools or whatever the issue might be, and then we can more effectively talk to them about the importance of voting. So I hope that's helpful. But yeah, so I think that I'm sure that there is at least a little bit of I'm sure there is some difference, but from the work that we're doing and the way that we try and engage people and remind them of why it's so important to vote, it really is down to an individual level.
Yeah. Well, I could see that. Though what we're aware of is some of the challenges of a digital divide, and because most of this work is being done digitally. And while Iowa, y'all are pretty flat, so you don't have as much problem as some of the folks up in Michigan getting good signal or some other more hilly places. But I'm assuming most of you are doing it through online organizing at this point. And though you said you're going to have this drop by day, return your mail-in ballot. Rob, I'm curious, as the auditor, then is most of your work done with the county auditors, then done digitally at this point, or how's that?
Yeah. We have, because of the pandemic, we have moved to almost entirely work from home. We did that back in March, and we did that in part because our job is one that thankfully can be done relatively well and relatively easily remotely. So we were lucky in that regard. We had our folks. I said, hey, we've got about 100 people in the office. I said, we are going to full-time work from home. We're going to do it now. We're going to suspend all travel. And we did that for 3 months. And then we had in a survey, about 20% of the folks in the office said that they really needed to get back into the office in terms of their productivity. But 20% capacity is something that we can do relatively well with physical distancing and masks. And so we have that 20% back in the office where they're more productive, but we've got a lot of safety precautions in place. And so we've been able so far to do that really effectively remotely. It doesn't mean that there's not challenges. And I think, honestly, one of the biggest things that I try to keep in mind myself when I'm talking to people and when I'm posting anything on social media, and when I'm talking to people in our office, is just try to treat everyone with grace in this pandemic. It is so easy to get wrapped up in our own precise perception of everything that is going on, and we're all under more stress. I saw something recently that dentists are seeing a lot more patients coming in with cracked teeth because people are grinding their teeth more at night because they are more stressed out. And so it hasn't always been easy to say, we need to do this work remotely. And I know that in our office, we have people with different perceptions of how serious the threat is, but also you can have the exact same perception of how serious the threat is and yet have a different risk appetite. And the thing that I try to keep focused on is just the idea that we are all in something that is essentially unprecedented. There are very, very, very few people alive right now who were cognitively aware during the last pandemic because it was 100 years ago. And if none of us have ever truly been through this before, not as adults, then we need to be approaching this with a mindset that says we have to be vigilant about facts and we have to be vigilant about good information, but we also have to share them and share our own perspectives in ways that are actually conducive to getting people to agree with them or getting people to appreciate them, rather than coming at each other with anger. We need to try to show each other a lot more grace and treat each other with a lot more kindness during this time because it's so challenging for all of us.
I think I'm going to put you on speed dial, or at least I'm going to take that snippet that you just said and record it so that I remember it, because you're so right. You are so right. Oh my gosh.
And yet it's so hard to do it. I mean, I fail at it probably every single day. But trying to have it front and center and trying to talk about it helps us all, I think, keep it a little bit more in our minds so that when we are interacting with people, hopefully we can do a better job of doing it in a way that's conducive to maintaining or even weaving social fabric while we're also trying to defeat a pandemic.
Amen. Britt, that makes me think that for our younger generation, what a challenge, because when you said that they're working a job or two, that and going to school, yikes, that in and of itself is stressful. And then to add the pandemic on top. Now, I know you can't speak for your generation, but could you just give us some of your insight about how is this playing out for you?
Yeah, I mean, we're really lucky. We made the decision back in March to pull people out of the offices and out of the field. So we do we're a field organization. So we get out there, we are in person, registering people on campuses, knocking doors, doing in-person events. That is all we do, and it's all we've ever really known. So we made a very difficult decision to pull people out of the field, but it was the right decision to make. We wanted people to be safe. And we've had to transition. We were doing a lot of phone banking and a lot of text banking. If you are watching this and you ever get a text message, please don't respond angrily. There's a real human volunteer on the other end of that text conversation who is just trying to make a difference in the world. And we are doing a lot of, digital content. We're posting a lot on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, contacting people that way, which has been great for us. We've kept working, we've kept busy. But for a lot of people,
Well, I think the gremlin got us again. Your
sound for us today.
Yeah, we lost your sound, Britt. Okay, and I was going to ask, maybe Carolyn, can you put in the chat to ask Britt for their Twitter handles so we can be sure to follow? Are you back? Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure what happened. I clicked mute and then unmute, so now I'm back. But what I was saying, yeah, we're really lucky at NextGen. We have continued to make it work. But a lot of my generation has not been that lucky. They've lost their jobs. They, were kicked out of their dorm rooms and sent home and weren't refunded any of their tuition money. And now they're back on campus when they know that it's very likely they're going to be kicked off again and be put and lose thousands of dollars. And it's really unfair that we're having to go through this. And not to mention they are back on campus when the right thing to do is to be doing everything from home and to be doing everything remotely. It's just not safe. And it is really scary. A lot of us have family members and friends who are at risk, who we love very dearly, who we want to protect. And we don't really have a choice. We have to go to school. We have to go to work. So it's been very hard on a lot of people that I know. And I feel very lucky, but I, have a lot of friends, and I connect with voters every day who are not quite that lucky.
Well, I was going to suggest before we lost your audio there for a minute, if you could give us the Twitter handle that you're using for Next Gen Iowa. I'm a Twitter person. I'd love to have it and see if we can make some mischief.
I'll give my I'll put in our little chat the Facebook page for us, and then I'll put my Twitter account in there. It is just at Brit BRIT_Bender BNBER.
Okay, super. And Matt, if you wanted to share, because I'm sure you guys are all into social media. It was there, yeah. Oh, it's in now with your name. Ooh, aren't you clever? All right, Matt, it's at Progress Iowa. It's creative. Excellent. Very, very well done. Very well done. Okay. Sue, I'm curious about the how some of the things that you're going to be finishing up in this time of getting ballots in, speaking with both voters and candidates. And I'm curious if you've got any specific strategies or events that you're looking forward to between now and November 3rd.
Absolutely. First of all, we're really fortunate in that we have a member development director at ICANN who literally calls through our list of members and gives them updates on different issues. And we also have a mail program where we mail at least 1,000 pieces a month to members that aren't necessarily on social media. So we're able to reach out to folks that aren't always able to get on Facebook or Twitter or emails. So it's pretty awesome that we still are able to do that and still have someone that's so good at his job. One project we're doing that I think is pretty cool, and I'm going to talk to you, Britt. Matt, you and I are already in this one. So we're going to do a video series on the issues Know Before You Vote. And we're going to touch on different, just 10-minute videos on different issues like how this payroll tax holiday affects older Americans with their Social Security, the federal funding and the COVID-19 treatments. We're going to do a roundtable on race and healthcare and the disparities. We'll do one on paid leave. Matt, we're going to do one on why courts matter because we've worked on that one a lot. And then one that I just kind of came up with that I think is so important is we keep hearing how the economy is good. The economy isn't good. The market is good. And so I have a financial advisor who's going to do just a little commentary on the market versus the economy. Ooh. And not only the difference between the super wealthy and the rest of us, but also the racial disparities in that. So I'm really excited, and we're going to try to drop these right after October 5th when our ballots come in. We thought about making it a month-long event in October, but I think, by the 15th, we're hoping everybody's turning their ballots in. So it's kind of an ambitious project, but we're small but mighty. We'll get it done.
Well, send us the links when they're up. I'm excited, especially the one on the economy. Doesn't it just make you nuts that, oh, yeah, the economy is so great. We've got millions of people unemployed. Oh, yeah. Stock market's fine. That's all.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's nuts. It's nuts. Okay, well, we're coming to kind of the end of our time, and I just want to make sure everybody's got a chance to think for a minute about what would be your what about Iowa do you hold in your heart? This is more about what matters to you in this moment. How do you, as we approach this election, we're all about at Network. We're about being a multi-issue voter because we know none of these issues are unrelated. They're all connected. And so we need to think in a multi-issued way. But we also know that, as my sign up here says, who we elect matters. And that as we approach this, I'm advocating for a bit of prayer and reflection, or at least kind of centering in your heart to figure out what really matters to you in this election and vote with your heart. Our heads will enter in, but if we got to vote with our heart with about what we need to know. And so we're putting up here at the bottom our turbovote.org at Network. You can see the address up there. And you can get all the Iowa regulations that you all have been talking about. And it connects with both the Iowa state government, but also goes down and pulls out all of the counties that you're working with. Now, I didn't realize how many counties you were working with until but I'm really grateful for being educated in the process. So take a minute, think about what matters in your heart and what would you want to say to voters? What would you want to say about what matters for Iowa, what matters for you as you come to this election? And I'm going to say October 15th, the date we're looking at. November 3rd might be the date that's the end of the line, but October 15th. So maybe we should just volunteer. I'm not going to call on you because I want you to be connected to what matters. Rob, are you willing to hop in? I think you're muted, maybe.
Let's see.
Yep.
I think I might be muted.
You're fine.
Internally.
You're fine. We got you.
I'm good now. All right. One of the things that I've been really thinking a lot about and talking about and trying to focus myself on in approaching this election is based in the fact that we seem to be at a point where we every day are seeing headlines where people in positions of power are questioning or leading us to question their commitment to the idea of democracy, which is a scary idea. Because at the end of the day, we all should be voting because the idea of this country is that we are a free people. A free people chooses their own leaders and chooses the direction that the country will go in generally. And if we're going to maintain that, then we all need to participate and we need to vote. And yet, every day we seem to read things that are scary in that regard. That the idea that we might not have, or that there would even be ever a question even asked about whether or not we're going to have a peaceful transition of power. And when I think about those things and I let them weigh on me, the two things that I really try to remember are the ideas of faith and of certainty. And that every day between now and the election and everything that I'm doing, I approach it with faith. Faith that the other people on this call, as well as everybody else out there, is also doing what they need to do in order to get good outcomes for democracy in this election. And that if we are all doing this together, that those outcomes are there and that we can get them and that we can, and that democracy can prevail. And then on the other end of things, also the idea of certainty. This country's been a struggle, and this country has worked for a long time to live up to its ideals of a more perfect union and of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for everyone, right? Because for a very long time, there were people that were explicitly excluded from influencing that direction. And yet we have to have this sense of certainty too, where on the days where the faith maybe fails us, that we need to have a sense of certainty about our own actions, that even if we do not see the end of that struggle, even if we are not there for victory, or if we don't have what we think of as a victory in this year, that we know that our own actions are actions of people who are demonstrating their own values, actions of people who care about their society and care about their fellow citizens, and that those things of themselves, living a good life, doing what is right, are things that we can take satisfaction in, even if we don't get every 100% of the outcome that we're looking for.
Amen. Faith and certainty. I love it. All right, let's hold on to that. Okay, who wants to go next? Or I can call on people.
I'm happy to go next.
Thanks, Britt. Appreciate it.
I just want to say, like, when you're thinking about going to vote, you know, and who you're going to vote for, or whether or not you're going to go vote, really take at heart the people who you love. And not just that you love them and you want to pick someone who you think is a good person, but think about what makes them uniquely different. So are they a student? Are they someone who suffers from a chronic health condition? Are they a person of color? Are they Black? Are they a member of the LGBTQ community? And think about the policies and the changes that can be made with this election to actually take care of them. I think the most important thing we can do is use our vote to protect people and to give them a better way of life. So just when you go vote, when you fill out your ballot, whether that's in person at the polls or hopefully absentee, think about who's going to take care of that person you love, and vote for them, and support those causes.
Amen. Absolutely. Voting is a communal act, and we need to think of those we love in the community. Oh, beautifully put, Britt. Thank you. Okay, I think maybe we ought to go to Sue. So Matt, who struggled to get the first word, we'll give him the last word. Okay.
We'll give him the last word. So, well, I have a sign behind me that says bad politicians are elected by good citizens who do not vote. And I think that is so true. Everyone needs to vote. I mean, it's our right. Look at people in other countries that fight and struggle and persevere to make decisions for themselves and their fellow citizens. And we just cannot afford to be complacent. This, as we said, is the most consequential election that I've ever been through. And Sister Simone, I think you and I might be in about the same demographic, but it is, I mean, do you think women should be objectified and sexualized in every comment? Do you think that someone like me that takes a medication that without insurance would cost $18 a pill that I take 3 times a day? Do you think that young people shouldn't be able to stay on their parents' health insurance? Do you think that my veteran husband and son and father are losers? I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. And to me, it's a moral imperative right now. I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. I joked the other day, my father died when I was 13, and I felt like I needed to go and make sure he hadn't spun out of his grave because he was a Republican, you know, and this is not, this is, I don't know, it just literally sickens me sometimes to see some of the vitriol that's coming out. And I just hope people will look into their hearts and do the right thing and vote.
Could you read one more time the sign behind you? Everybody gets it.
Bad politicians are elected by good citizens who do not vote.
All right, everybody out there. Okay, Matt, last word.
Okay. I mean, I think I could take pieces from what everyone has said. But I think that it's critical to remember and remind our friends and family. I mean, I think that hopefully the people that are listening to this are already voting, or hopefully will make a plan to vote. But once you do, I think, and to follow up on Sue's point about this, it's so important to have some personal conversations with people. to encourage people to vote. We all know people who might not vote, who are thinking about sitting this out, that think maybe no matter how much we all are watching the news or think about this as a consequential election, there are still people that think that there may be no difference, or that their vote doesn't make a difference. But it really does. And I think hammering that home, that your vote and your voice can make a difference. And it's one of the things that I love best about my job. Obviously doing things like this, but it's working with people that you can take them from someone who has never really been engaged in anything remotely, and they would consider it political, but it's really just standing up for themselves and their family. Because I think so many times people get in this mode where we've seen this a lot, especially around like a childcare discussion, or we talk about the economy, but their personal family economic realities, where the parents have to both work, and so the grandparents are doing more of their part for childcare so that they can't work, and it's just this economic strain on the whole family. That's just one example, but people just get used to this and they think this is just how it is. And so when you can get them to think about and connect to a piece of advocacy work, and take them from being disconnected to advocating for themselves, writing a letter to the editor, calling their member of Congress, and then eventually, and then hopefully voting. I mean, you can really see how this all adds up to the difference that we can make. So telling these stories about why it matters personally with your friends and family cuts through all the noise, all the TV ads, all the stuff the distractions that you see, and just sharing why does it matter to you. And for me, it really is what y'all have already mentioned, but it is, we have to take care of each other. That's it. That's we tend to overcomplicate things, but I want everyone to be able to go and see a doctor without going broke. I want everybody to have every kid to have a great education, no matter where they come from or what they look like. I mean, that's what this is about. So, so tell your friends, tell your family why you're voting and why it matters to you, and share it in a positive way, because I think that draws more people in. And I think, as Rob said, that's hard to do sometimes. It's hard to stay focused on that aspect of it, but it's really important to do that as well. So, thanks for letting me have the last word. But yeah, keep connecting with your friends and family.
Amen. Okay, so we're going to take a bit of faith and certainty. We're going to take voting for the sake of another. We're going to lift up the issues and help our friends and family make a plan to vote, because we need to elect good people, and voting will make that happen. And then finally, Matt, we're going to tell our own stories to others in a positive way, so that they know the urgency of voting, so that we can say to each other, well, if you're not voting for yourself, could you vote for me? I know one of the things we're keenly aware of at Network is how part of our voting is for the next generation. We have to vote for our kids who are not yet 18. We also need to vote for residents who can't vote. There's so many efforts at voter suppression that those of us that have access, we have to use our access. So thank you, Iowa, for this stimulating conversation. Thanks for being with us this morning. And let us look forward to October 15th for turning in our absentee ballots, but also November 3rd for hearing how the nation comes together and is responsible in our voting. Thank you all. Goodbye.